Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into two really powerful but very different toolkits for understanding human experience: phenomenology and grounded theory. Both of them help us get at the why behind what people do, but as you'll see, they go about it in completely opposite ways. So here's the game plan. We're going to start by talking about why we even need methods like these in the first place. Then we'll get to know our two main players: phenomenology, who I like to think of as the artist, and grounded theory, the architect. After that, we'll put them head to head, and we'll finish up by figuring out how you can choose the right one for the questions you're trying to answer. All right, let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental question. How in the world do you measure something like joy or grief or what it feels like to succeed? I mean, numbers and charts can only tell part of the story, right? And that's exactly where qualitative research comes in. It was built to answer that very question. Instead of counting things, it digs into the richness of human stories. It's all about understanding these super complex things through the eyes of the people who are actually living them. This quote from Denson and Lincoln just hits the nail on the head. See, qualitative research isn't about trying to shove data into boxes that we've already made. Nope, it's about seeing the world from someone else's perspective. It's about understanding the meaning they create from their own lives.
So what do we get from this approach that, a spreadsheet can't give us? Well, for starters, it captures all the little details and complexities of real life. It gives you incredible depth, even if you only talk to a few people. And maybe most important of all, it gives a voice to the participants, letting their stories and their experiences take center stage. Okay, let's grab our first toolkit: phenomenology. If qualitative research is the big umbrella, think of phenomenology as a portrait artist. It's completely focused on one thing: capturing the pure, unvarnished essence of a specific, powerful human experience.
Its goal is absolutely laser-focused. It wants to find the universal essence of an experience that people share. So think about what it actually feels like to become a parent for the first time, or to cross the finish line of your first marathon. Phenomenology wants to take that feeling and distill it down to its most fundamental parts. So where does this idea come from? Well, we can thank a philosopher named Edmund Husserl. His big idea was that to really, truly understand something, a researcher has to strip away all their own baggage, their biases, their theories, everything. The real goal is to get back to the raw, unfiltered experience just as it was lived. And this is a really, really important point. A phenomenologist is not trying to explain why something happened. They're trying to describe in incredible detail what it was like. To pull this off, they use a cool technique called bracketing. It's like they take all their own assumptions and beliefs, put them in a box, and set that box on a shelf so they can see the experience purely through the other person's eyes. Okay, time for our second toolkit. So if phenomenology was the artist, then grounded theory, well, that's the architect. It's not just trying to describe one thing. It wants to build a whole new blueprint, an explanation, from the ground up.
And you've got to pay attention to those key words there: discover, develop, generate. See, grounded theory doesn't start with some existing theory that it's trying to prove. No way. The theory actually emerges from the data itself. It's built piece by piece based on what people are actually saying and doing. This whole approach actually came about back in the 60s. A couple of sociologists, Glaser and Strauss, wanted a more structured, rigorous way to do this kind of research. The process is super systematic. You go out and collect data. Then you code it to find patterns. You write little notes or memos to yourself to explore ideas, and eventually, bam, a new theory pops out that explains what you've been seeing. And this is where you can really see that architect analogy at play. It all starts with open coding, which is like sorting all your building materials, breaking the data into little conceptual pieces. Then axial coding starts to connect those pieces, like you're putting up the frame of a house. And finally, selective coding finds the main central beam of the whole structure and organizes everything else around it. And what you're left with is a complete blueprint. Okay, so we've met the artist and we've met the architect. We've seen what's in their toolkits. Now, let's put them in the ring, head to head, and really see how they stack up against each other. Right off the bat, you can see the difference just in the questions they're designed to answer. Phenomenology is all about asking, what is it like? It focuses on that subjective, internal, lived experience. But grounded theory asks, what's going on here? It's trying to build an explanation for a process or an action.
And this chart just lays it all out perfectly. You see how those different questions lead to totally different projects. Phenomenology, with its roots in philosophy, has the goal of describing an essence. Grounded theory, coming out of sociology, has the goal of explaining a process. So the final thing you make, your product, is either going to be a rich description or a brand new theory.
They also go about collecting their raw materials, the data, in completely different ways. Phenomenology really likes to go deep with a small number of long, in-depth interviews. Grounded theory, on the other hand, has this mantra that everything is data. Interviews, notes from watching people, documents, you name it. The sample size tends to be bigger too because researchers keep collecting data until they hit what they call saturation. That's the point where they're not hearing any new big ideas.
And get this, it's kind of funny. Even the guys who invented grounded theory couldn't totally agree on the best way to do it. The big debate was basically about how structured you should be. Should the theory just pop out of the data completely fresh, or is it okay to check out what other people have written along the way? It just goes to show you that even these methods can be flexible. So this all leads us to the big practical question, right? You've got these two powerful but super different toolkits. How in the world do you choose the right one for the job? Well, the very first thing to get straight is that there is no better method here. That's like asking if a paintbrush is better than a hammer. It's a silly question. They're built for totally different jobs. The right choice is going to depend entirely on what you're trying to figure out. So here's your cheat sheet. It really all boils down to this. If your research question is about the essence of an experience, what it feels like, and your goal is to describe it in all its richness, then you want phenomenology, the portrait. But if your question is about the process of how something works and your goal is to explain it, then you need grounded theory, the blueprint. And ultimately, that's what it all comes down to. That's the simple, final question you have to ask yourself. Are you trying to create an intimate, detailed portrait of a human experience, capturing its very soul? Or are you trying to draw a functional, explanatory blueprint of how something in our world works, showing how all the pieces fit together? The answer to that question will tell you exactly which tool to pick up.